One of the things I find most curious about the Vatican is the symbolism of the fish god Dagon and how important he is to them. According to some mainstream researchers, Dagon is the father of Baal, and same as him, demanded human sacrifices. In modern times, Dagon's followers wear a fish hat in his honor and rule over the Catholic Church. But strangely enough, the worship of Dagon is not widely spread. The Rothschilds, who control the financial system, always show signs of Baphomet worship, and the House of Windsor, royalty of the United Kingdom, sticks to their sun god. From what it appears, the true royal blood is that of popes, the only ones worthy of wearing the fish hat, showing us that pagan religions have their own hierarchy, and that peasants are not divine enough to even know about who the elite is praising. So I decided to research the religion of Dagon, and I gotta say that it looks a lot like information about it is being withheld from the public. But still, it sent me to one of the wildest rabbit holes I've been to so far since I started my research. And while there are a lot of crazy theories going around, there's only one question that matters when it comes to finding the truth. And that is, did I provide sufficient amount of evidence to prove my claim? Give me the next few minutes to present my findings, and you're going to find out. According to Hindu teachings, the world goes through cycles that are kept by three Hindu gods. Brahma creates, Vishnu preserves, Shiva destroys. Throughout the world cycle, Vishnu came in different avatars. 10 of them are confirmed, but according to believers, there may be more. There was the incarnation of Vishnu where he came as a boar in what sounds like the Celtic god Mukus, or as Rama, a wise king who slayed a demon, a description that could fit Shlomo, king of Israel. There's Vishnu's incarnation as Krishna, a character that shares similarities with Jesus, and there's Kalki, the Messiah who will defeat evil in the end times. I could make an entire video about the Hindu god Vishnu and how his supposed avatars fit descriptions of powerful beings throughout ancient history, while he is credited for all of their achievements. But for the purposes of this video, I focus on the first incarnation of Vishnu known to Hindus, because in the Hindu version of the Great Flood, Vishnu comes as a fish by the name of Matsya. He comes in time to save a family who built a ship to prepare for the flood and drag them to safety. The head of the family is Manu, and he has three sons, Charma, Sharma, and Yapeti. The obvious similarities in the children's names to the names of the sons of Noah is enough to convince some that the Hindu story of the flood and the biblical version speak of the same family. Matsya is chronologically the earliest documentation of a fish god I could find in my research. According to Hindu myth, Dagon is the god who saved humanity from the Great Flood, and this is quite different from how he is described in the Bible. According to biblical records, Dagon is a Middle Eastern pagan god who was worshipped in the area of modern-day Syria and Israel. I've seen theories that Dagon is another name for Nimrod, who was the Babylonian king that built the Tower of Babel after the flood. But if we go with the Bible, Nimrod was a human giant and Dagon was a fish. So this theory falls apart. The Bible mentions Dagon as the god of the Philistines. References to this entity in the Bible include the capture of Shimshon, the last judge of Israel. The Philistines used Shimshon's affection to Philistine women to capture and torture him. After his eyes were pulled out and his hair cut, Shimshon was led to his execution as an offering to Dagon in one of the Philistine temples, where he used his superhuman strength to collapse the structure, taking all Philistine spectators with him. In the book of Shmuel is the story of Dagon's death. The Philistine followers of the pagan god managed to get the Ark of the Covenant to Dagon's temple in Ashdod. When they came the next morning, they've seen their god decapitated and his hands cut off. with only his body lies on the ark. Besides the Hindu myth and the Bible, there's the Mesopotamian story of Oannes, a humanoid fish that came from the sea to the shores of Babylon to teach mankind science and writing. My question now is, are Oannes and Dagon the same entity, or are there two humanoid fish worshipped by ancient civilizations? Popular culture, on the other hand, does not have a lot of references to Dagon. One of the only references that exist is a story by H.P. Lovecraft about a World War I survivor who found himself on a deserted shore. Dagon chases the man away, and he wakes up in a hospital in California. The memories of this monster continue to haunt him, and after no one believes his testimony, he decides to kill himself. My interpretation of the story is that Lovecraft saw World War I casualties as offerings to the Philistine fish god. This makes a lot more sense if we consider the followers of Dagon to be the Vatican, when we take into account the power held by these bloodlines. And this raises a new question. If the military is a modern form of human sacrifice, when soldiers die on the battlefield or by taking their own life, in whose honor are all these sacrifices made? Satan, Baphomet, Lucifer? Yes, Baphomet is seen as both sexes, and soldiers in modern armies are encouraged to go through sex change operations. But is making people mutilate themselves not enough? Why does the military encourage soldiers to kill themselves? Allow me to introduce a new thesis. Baphomet and Lucifer are worshipped by peasants, and that's where we see the hierarchy of the pagan gods. Nimrod was not Dagon himself, he was a giant ruler who worshipped Dagon, not too different than how it is right now, because only the top of the food chain, the royal bloodlines who control Rome, are worthy of worshipping the fish god. Outside the bloodlines of the Vatican, barely anyone gives Dagon any thought. Everyone is busy with the lesser pagan religions. Next piece of evidence I would like to discuss is the records of an African tribe that includes 100,000 members. According to the myth of the Dogon tribe, a race of creatures they call Nomos arrived Earth from the sky and took shelter in bodies of water. The way Nomos are described resembles humanoid fish, and they could live both in the water and on land. The masks they wear is probably the tribe's members' best attempts of recreating the Nomos appearance. They claim that men were fed by the Nomo, they ate and drank from his body. The eat my flesh, drink my liquid may sound familiar, and there are mentions of Nomo being crucified, but overall the Nomo mythology is kept secret by the priests of the Dogon tribe, and this makes verifying how much of this information is reliable quite impossible, so take that into account. But after looking into it, the chronicles of the Dogon tribe connected between the fish god and an entire race. This gave me a new perspective on the theory of evolution, and how life supposedly started from single cells, then evolved to fish, then reptile, to monkey, and finally developed to man. If a tribe of 100,000 people in Africa is not considered by you as a reliable source, know that in the Far East there is a legend of the first inhabitants of Hong Kong being descendants of a race of fish people they call Lo Ting. The Eastern Jin dynasty, rulers of southeastern area of modern-day China during the 4th and 5th centuries, had to defend their capital from an army of Lo Ting. The ruling dynasty won the war, and the attackers fled south to the area of Hong Kong. This race was wiped almost entirely by the Song dynasty, who wanted to control the resources in the area. The fish people species is known in Brazil as Yacuruna. This race lived in underwater cities in the Amazonas. According to Brazilian mythology, the Yacuruna could change their appearance to men, and they used this ability to interact and abduct girls. So the evidence on the existence of fish people are piling up. And maybe you could say that everything I presented so far is pure fiction, but you probably heard of the sea people who raided and terrorized Egypt and other ancient civilizations during the Bronze Age. The sea people are accepted by academia and seen as an actual society that existed backed by historical records. The mainstream has some theories about their origin. It's a tribe that expertises in sailing and fighting, and it came from the shores of the Mediterranean Sea, anywhere that is north of Egypt. But if that's the case, why would they get this weird title, Sea People? Why not calling them pirates or something more descriptive? Why would they destroy cities and kill people, but not steal anything or take over resources? They're always said to be mysterious and fearful, which is also an odd way to describe this gang. I mean, if I was held at gunpoint by armed Somalian pirates, I guess it would be scary. It wouldn't be something I have to remind people of when I tell this story while getting drunk. I think this part of the lecture that I found about the sea people presents the mainstream theory pretty well about their origin.
Foreign countries made a conspiracy in their islands. All at once the lands were removed and scattered in their fray. No land could stand before their arms. And then he tells us what happens, who they overran. Hatti is Turkey, it's the Hittites. Kode is where Turkey meets Syria. Carchemish, northern Syria. Artsawa is actually western Turkey on the coast there. Alasia is the ancient name for Cyprus. And then he actually tells us the name of the peoples. He says their confederation was the Peleset, the Tajeker, the Shekelesh, the Denyen, and the Weshesh. Sardinia, absolutely. So people think that maybe they're from Sardinia. Sicily, absolutely, right. So Sicily. Tajeker's a little bit harder. We're thinking maybe the Troad or Sickles. Denyen, many people have suggested these are Homer's Danaans, so the Mycenaeans from Greece. The Weshesh, not sure. Ancient name for Troy is Wilusa, so maybe that's where they're from. The only one that we're pretty sure we know, Philistines.
So this makes sense, right? Tribes from Italy, Canaan, and a couple of places in Greece banded together to destroy cities in Egypt, Assyria, Cyprus, and modern-day Turkey and Israel. They used their resources to kill and destroy cities and empires, but they didn't steal anything and were overall a group of weirdos who just enjoy waging wars. And there is no evidence to confirm that they're really from where they are believed to come from. It's always stated that not so much is known about the sea people, so could it be that historic records were purposely destroyed to hide their identity, and at the same time flood the academia with baseless theories about them? The Egyptians said that they came from the sea. I don't think they could make it any more explicit. Even though there are a few centuries and an entire continent apart, the descriptions of the groups that had battles against Ramses III and against the Eastern Jin dynasty suggest the same explanation. There is a race of humanoid fish hostile to mankind that every now and then goes up from the sea to fight cities and destroy civilizations. The Witcher is a series of popular video games. This game includes a type of enemy called Drowner. It's a monster that stays in groups that reside in and along bodies of water and tries to kill anyone who passes. You might think that the creators of the game or the author of the book series were just creative with coming up with the idea of drowners, but demonology is a big part of the Witcher franchise. There is, for example, a creature called Leshen that is based on a monster from Slavic mythology, or the shadow demon that feeds on a man's misery. And that's not creativity, that's the result of research. So I wonder what was the inspiration for the drowners. Now, after collecting data, filtering it, and analyzing the results, we can finally draw some conclusions. Civilizations around the Mediterranean Sea describe the same attackers that Chinese talked of. This race of humanoid fish is at constant war with men all over the world. It's not a coincidence that Dagon was worshipped by societies on the shores of the sea, because he could be an ancestor or the leader of this underwater civilization. That is if he managed to come back after being killed by the Ark of the Covenant. The Vatican worships or somehow connected to this race of fish people and sacrifices humans in its king's honor. You may wonder why this race is not covered by the Bible or the outside books, but the Bible tells of chronicles of men. It doesn't mean there weren't other humanoid species in the world. Humanity could be just one more race thrown to the mix. Eve was seduced by a talking snake. Some believe that Cain was a descendant of the snake and not Adam's. Thinking about it now, the snake could be part of an entire humanoid species from back then. And to be honest, lizard people ruling the world doesn't sound so crazy now. The only question left is, did I provide sufficient evidence to prove my claim?